There once was a time when New Orleans earned the reputation of being America's Sin City. It boasted the largest red light district in the country. Now, that history is part of a new museum that tells the story of Storyville. Dave McNamara takes us there in the heart of Louisiana.
There was widespread gambling, the birth of jazz, and legal brothels, all part of a time more than a century ago when New Orleans had a neighborhood known as Storyville.
Storyville was the largest red light district in America, ever. Claude
Sadlier, who lives in the French Quarter, did a deep dive into New Orleans history. He collected artifacts, stories, and photographs. He turned that passion into a new Storyville museum, located just 2 blocks from the city's old red light district.
It was such an amazing place in the 1800s, a lot of people don't know. Like the 3rd largest city in America, the center for banking and shipping and commerce. We were the cultural center of the United States, the gambling center of the United States.
Storyville itself was a very short-lived phenomenon, 2 decades?
Yeah, so what they did is they took 2 districts that were already kind of steeped in vice and said prostitution is illegal everywhere in New Orleans with the exception of these 2 districts. So the red indicates all of the female boarding houses, which were basically the bordellos and the cribs.
The name comes from a New Orleans city councilman, Sidney Story, who pushed for an ordinance creating the special area for legal brothels.
And originally it was called the district, but the press started having a field day calling it Storyville, and the name stuck.
The museum has exhibits showing the high-end mansions with live jazz music and female companions for male guests.
And this is where the men would come in, they would drink champagne, they would listen to some music, and then the ladies would come down and join them.
Early jazz pioneers like Jelly Roll Morton often performed here.
So you had 100 musicians working every night in Storyville, really developing this new art form.
There were also no-frills cribs, small apartments that lined some of Storyville's streets. The museum has arcades that were used for peep shows and displays that show New Orleans' deep ties to gambling.
When Las Vegas was probably nothing but a pile of sand, New Orleans had 500 licensed casinos.
New Orleans photographer Ernest Belloc frequently took pictures of the women. He puts faces on the history. And there is a blue book printed in 1907 that's full of Storyville advertisements.
Generally how fine the furnishings were, how amazing the music was, how pretty the girls were.
Storyville lasted just 20 years, from 1897 to 1917, when Army and Navy bases opened in New Orleans at the start of World War I. The military insisted that the brothels shut down. This museum uncovers that history of a time when New Orleans had earned the reputation of Sin City. With the heart of Louisiana, Dave McNamara, WAFB 9 News.